Despite his scarlet cheeks, he stormed into my living room outraged. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" he shouted. I stayed put. "James, your kids have issues. Finding them safely is more important than any problem." James revealed his confidential business in a fit of wrath. It appears he owed money to a potentially dangerous loan shark named Victor and his squad. James took out loans to pay off his gambling debts, then more to win enough money to pay off his liabilities. He tried to extend his payment period, worried they would look for him if he didn't show up. "You might also target Carol and Daniel." The news shocked me. I knew James had made bad decisions, but I never expected him to work with loan sharks. My voice trembled as I addressed James. "How could you put your kids in such danger? Make them your top priority." After his wrath subsided, James dropped onto my couch, head and hands on it. He said, "Yes, I am aware," his voice cracking. "Sarah, I made a big mistake. I just wanted to improve their lives, don't you know? I thought getting rich would allow me to finally support them." Sitting next to him, I felt terrible for my brother and angered at his recklessness. "Mr. James, gambling won't achieve that. Carol and Daniel need love and stability more than money." A knock at the door interrupted our talk. 2 police officers arrived to question us about the child's absence. James' relationships with these dangerous people were important to them. I squeezed James' hand and reminded him that finding Carol and Daniel was everything. First, James refused my request. After nodding, he told the cops everything about his debts and creditors. The next 2 days were filled with police interviews, searches, and anxious waiting. Mark was a rock for us, bringing us food, fielding calls from worried friends and relatives, and just being there. I appreciated his support, but I felt horrible for including him in this mess. Carol and Daniel were safe. After failing to break into my residence, they went to a nearby mall. Mrs. Chen, the store owner, noticed them loitering for a few days and notified child services. The youngsters were healthy save for fear and hunger. They told the police that I wasn't answering the door and that their father had told them to stay with me no matter what. They slept in Mrs. Chen's business's rear room at night and walked about the retail center during the day. Carol and Daniel are under child services custody while they investigate James' fatherhood. Despite his anguish, James knows he is solely responsible. Investigators are looking into his ties to Victor and the loan shark business. I can visit the kids. Seeing kids in the child services office's antiseptic visitation room broke my heart. Carol cried and hugged me like a child when she saw me. Daniel tried to look strong, but I could see his relief in his eyes. "Aunt Sarah, regards. We're sorry." Carol sniffled, and we didn't mean to bother her. Each got a bear hug from me. "You didn't cause any problems," I told them. "None of this is your fault. I'm so glad you're okay." Despite my uncertainty about how to manage this scenario, I told them everything would be fine. While James resolves his legal concerns, I am negotiating with child services to become their interim guardian. James is fully cooperating with authorities in hopes of recovering custody of the children. He is accused of gambling debts and loan sharking, but the authorities seem more interested in using his expertise to pursue Victor and his group. My wake-up call came from everything that happened. Despite my relationship with James, I realized I need to be more involved in my niece and nephew's lives. My conflicted sentiments about James and my emphasis on my life and career led me to keep a distance from him throughout my life. However, coming so near to losing them has made me appreciate their presence in my life. From now on, I will always support Carol and Daniel. I know it will be difficult. James's legal troubles, custody position, and how this information may affect my life and relationship are yet unknown. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm making the best option for our family. Second update 2 weeks after last update. The situation is better, but James's actions are still affecting us. I hosted Carol and Daniel for a week. They stay with me. Child Services chose me as their temporary guardian after a home study. This new position has required us to adapt, but we're doing okay. The first several days were hardest. Carol woke up screaming and crying, unsure of her location. Nightmares plagued her, which made my heart sink. I contacted James immediately, confused and worried about what was happening around me. While I was greeting him, he answered the first ring and started ranting. "Do you know where you were?" he yelled. "Where are Daniel and Carol now? How could you be so careless?" "I didn't know my destination. Take it easy, James. So what are you talking about?" I had just returned from exploring the campground. "What's up with Daniel and Carol?" James' voice sounded frantic and angry. "I left them at your house 4 days ago." Carol stayed with me despite her reluctance to accompany the social worker. Daniel first avoided looking at James. The ice melted slightly throughout the visit. James revealed his problem causing conditions during one of these meetings. He suffered financially and emotionally after Lisa left. It felt like he had failed as a husband and father. He started going to the casino in hopes of winning big enough to give the kids a good life. James said, embarrassed. I am aware that it was a foolish decision. I felt hopeless. I want to be a father who gives his kids excellent stuff and vacations. I thought one big win would solve everything. Instead, he accumulated additional debt. After the banks denied him more loans, Victor, the loan shark, became his go-to lender. Initially, it was a small loan. Victor and his guys upped their pressure as his debts rose. I was furious when I heard he risked his child's safety. However, since he was so wounded and contrite, I am trying to help and keep him accountable. He agreed to join a gambling addiction treatment program to recapture Carol and Daniel. My kids are adjusting to live with me. Carol is revealing some nervousness. I encourage her to doodle and paint to express her emotions because she has always been artistic. She timidly showed me a drawing she drew of us the other day. She, Daniel, James, and I hold hands. It made me cry. Even now. Daniel struggles. Because of his anger, especially toward James, he has been misbehaving at school. His principal called me yesterday about a fight he had with another kid. I picked him up, and he was irritated and protective. Care about this. He became angry when I tried to talk to him. You are not my mama. Because your father made another mistake, you must stay with us. Though his remarks hurt, I tried to be calm. Daniel, I care because you are a member of my family. I know I haven't been present enough, but that will change soon. Nothing will stop me from helping you. He made no additional comments, but his shoulders seemed to relax. I am committed to supporting them even though it will take time to build trust. I had to make many changes for Carol and Daniel. I turned my extra room into a bedroom for Carol. My office pull-out couch is where I'm sleeping while Daniel sleeps. I am considering moving to a larger location, which is a big financial decision. Due to everything, my relationship with Mark is strained. He has been sympathetic, but I can tell he is struggling to adjust to the sudden arrival of 2 children. Before all of this, we contemplated moving in together, but now everything is up in the air. In a difficult conversation last night, he told Sarah, I care about you and I want to support you. But this is a lot to take on with 2 teens. I'm not sure I'm ready to be a father figure. His hesitancy makes sense. But it stings. I have no idea what this means for our future. Carol and Daniel will remain my top priorities for now. Happiness and hardship have coexisted. We cooked dinner together the night before. My suggestion to prepare homemade pizza initially irked Daniel. He became fascinated by the process. Carol laughed while working the dough, a sprinkle of flour on her nose. For a while, we felt like a conventional family. Despite my efforts, I struggle to provide stability and support. I'm becoming better at raising traumatized and uprooted teens. I sometimes feel overwhelmed and question my ability to handle this challenge. Carol may smile shyly or Daniel would tell me about his day. Both occur. Also, I know I'm in the proper place. Legal procedures against James continue. Gambling and loan sharking charges have been filed against him. Since he's cooperating, prosecutors seem willing to deal with him. He is still pondering jail time. I stay awake at night worrying about telling Carol and Daniel their father may be imprisoned. My profession, children, Mark, and self-care are all competing for my attention. I take things day by day. It is difficult, and I sometimes wonder if I have taken on too much. Despite everything, Carol and Daniel make me certain I made the correct choice. Regardless of the situation, I will give children stability and love. The 3rd update. It has been a month since I last updated you. Life has returned to normal, albeit it's still hard. Daniel and Carol live with me. The court extended my interim guardianship so James can continue to work on his issues. He valued discipline and organization, but James always resisted. James caused most problems as a child. Skipping school and fighting were his habits. He also hung out with the wrong crowd. I was shy and studied, trying to win over our grandparents. This created a divide between us that widened as we aged. James and his grandfather fought over his future at 18. His grandfather wanted him to join the military or go to college. James wanted to play music and tour with his band. James stomped out of the house with a guitar after the fight and vowed never to return. Over several years, we rarely spoke. James occasionally called or texted for money. My brother's children disappeared after many days at my house. He blames me, but the truth is worse than I thought. My 30-year-old self and 34-year-old James have a complicated relationship. After our parents died in a car accident when I was 5 and James was 9, our grandparents raised us in a little Michigan town. Both of our grandparents were affectionate, but our retired military grandfather was harsh. I was saddened by his absence, yet angered at him for leaving our family. I got a college scholarship, studied hard, and made a life for myself. James' life changed. After she got pregnant at 19, he married his high school girlfriend Lisa and had a child. Daniel, 15, and Carol, 12, followed a few years later. James tried to settle down by working construction jobs and playing gigs on weekends, but he battled with parenting and marriage. James and Lisa split in 2003. She suspected he was cheating after getting tired of his unreliability. James took care of the kids after she moved to California with her new partner. James was unexpectedly a single father with no idea how to handle the problem. Since then, I've helped whenever possible. I occasionally took the kids on weekend trips or helped buy school supplies. However, James says he doesn't need my help much. He seems ashamed of his life compared to mine. A stable relationship, a wonderful house, and a successful software development career. I have a good life. James struggles to meet his financial goals. The week before, my boyfriend Mark and I went camping. After 2 years of dating, this was our first vacation together. Our 5-day excursion to a distant northern Michigan area was utterly isolated. We are alone in nature without mobile or internet connectivity. The stunning view gave us a much-needed break from our busy lives. My phone was full of James' notifications, missed calls, angry texts, and voicemails yesterday when we returned to civilization. Each communication seemed more urgent than the last. You were to watch them while I handled personal affairs. What justifies leaving them? My mind raced everywhere. I had no idea what he was talking about. James, I never agreed to watch the kids. I never did. I last saw you 5 days ago. I received no daycare communications from you. James insisted on texting you. I asked you to watch them for a few days. I assumed you would be okay since you always want to help. I opened my phone again and scrolled through texts. James never mentioned watching the kids. I have had no messages from James about this situation. When did you give these to them? On the other end, the discussion paused. James became more quiet and apologetic when he spoke again. While dropping them off, I didn't see you. I was rushing. I told them to ring the doorbell and wait for you. So I told them. A shudder raced down my spine. Do you mean you left your children unsupervised outside my house without verifying if I was home, or making sure they got inside safely? James defensively said, I had to leave as soon as possible. I expected you home. You never leave home. I breathed deeply to stay calm. James, the children disappeared because you failed to protect them. This is not my fault. Demand action from authorities. No, James's voice was sharp. No police intervention. I'm having legal issues. If the cops investigate, the situation may worsen. But he refused to give me more information about this legal situation despite my repeated requests. He just blamed me for not being home and monitoring my messages. He repeated this. Are you James? I confirmed I had not received any texts. Daniel was unpleasant and isolated, and spent most of his time playing video games or messaging relatives and friends. Due to this new situation, I felt entirely out of my depth and unable to comfort or regulate them. I took time off work to help the kids adjust. My boss was quite kind. I know I can't escape work forever. To be there for Carol and Daniel, I'm looking for a more flexible employment. James can visit the kids under supervision. The first had tension and intensity. You have to make sure I was accessible before leaving your kids. This is yours, not mine. The voice of James broke. I know my error. Sarah, please help me find them. Being only children, they're understandably scared. James' carelessness enraged me. Yet I felt for Carol and Daniel the whole time. All of this was a fraud. James, have you consulted any close friends or Lisa's relatives? James said Lisa's family won't talk to me. I have no reliable friends in this matter. I was optimistic. One of your others may have hosted them. I promised James the first call. After our chat, I sat on my couch to process what happened. Why did James act casually? What was wrong with him that he couldn't report his children missing to the police? Contacting our shared friends and family was my initial step. Our grandmother and grandfather died 5 years prior. No word from the kids. No one else in my group had seen them. I became more anxious with each unsuccessful call. Mark rubbed my back while I made many calls. Perhaps we should call the police, he suggested cautiously. Please remember that we are talking about children, even though James does not want to. I nodded, torn between James's wishes and my morals. No, I'm worried about James' predicament. Yes, I know. What if calling the police worsens Carol and Daniel's situation? As the night went on and there was no news, I kept thinking of Carol and Daniel standing outside my empty house, perplexed and afraid. They were clever kids, but too young to be left alone for days. Carol frequently clung to her older brother due to her shyness and fear. Daniel had a temper like James's but was more outgoing. I worried about their approach. Anxiety for Carol and Daniel makes me sick. You can find them somewhere, possibly hungry and afraid. I am furious at James for being reckless and then blaming me, but I am worried for those youngsters. I have no idea what to do. Should I contact the police if James asks? Names of these children? Could I be partially responsible for my absence when they needed me? Updated. 3 days have passed since my last post, and much has happened. I want to thank everyone for their support and recommendations. Despite James's requests, some of you strongly advised me to call the police. I discovered you were right after a night of insomnia. I called the police the morning after my previous post to report Carol and Daniel missing. I told them everything, including James's refusal to call the police and leaving them at my place without checking first. After thorough evaluation of the report, authorities immediately began an inquiry. My attempt to call James to tell him what I did failed since he didn't answer. After speaking with the police, James came at my house 1 hour later.